I'm Gary, and I'm a solution engineer at CyberGRX. The goal of my presentation is to provide an overview and demonstration of how CyberGRX can help Acme address process inefficiencies and build a world-class third-party cyber risk program. To properly set expectations, let's go over the agenda. I'll start by summarizing my understanding of the impact of the challenges you outlined on our previous call and what an ideal state might look like for Acme. Next, I'll present insights from the analysis of your vendor file. If we stay on track, we should arrive in your production portfolio for a live demonstration in less than 5 minutes. The last time we spoke, you said that your primary challenge was that due diligence was causing delays in new vendor onboarding. I also captured that management has growing concerns regarding your exposure to cybercrime coming from your third-party ecosystem. In a perfect world, assessments would already be available and the highest priority findings would be called out. As a result of the increase in cybercrime, you would have push-button visibility into how emerging threats intersect with your critical assets through your vendor engagements. If Acme could eliminate onboarding delays, it sounds like a significant strategic blocker would be addressed, and security personnel would be freed up to focus on risk reduction and other high-value tasks. Providing managers faster actionable visibility regarding emerging threats could improve overall understanding of the value of Acme's third-party risk function. At the end of the demonstration, my goal is for you to agree that CyberGRX can help Acme build a world-class third-party cyber risk program. When it comes to vendor onboarding delays impacting business objectives, Acme is not alone. In a survey performed by Deloitte, every year more and more companies are frustrated with the time-consuming due diligence process. And in the most recent survey, half of organizations began implementing progressive alternatives to the traditional due diligence process in order to onboard third parties faster. The good news is that we can fast-track your program. Upon loading your CyberGRX portfolio with the vendor file you sent last week, we identified that 37% of your vendors are already members on the exchange. This constitutes a significant vendor onboarding improvement for Acme. When onboarding companies not yet on the exchange, Acme can leverage predictive intelligence, which uses machine learning algorithms to identify capabilities and weaknesses in vendor security. Customers use predictive intelligence as an alternative to traditional self-assessment when time is of the essence. Now let's look at what exposures to cybercrime we were able to identify as a result of entering your vendors into your CyberGRX portfolio. Acme has nearly 200 critical vendors, which are indicated by the orange bar here on the right. But there are third parties in the medium and low risk tiers exposed to vulnerabilities as well. The lower tier vendors are not typically top of mind until a crisis breaks, such as SolarWinds, Kaseya, or even Russian destructive malware. Our customers tell us that whenever there is a newly identified application vulnerability or threat, they have to scramble to triage the impact. Having all your cyber-relevant third parties in one portfolio can minimize the running around when a crisis unfolds. An analysis of your inherent risk vendors revealed that 86 are vulnerable to ransomware. Let's look at who some of these vendors are. Let's drill in to see the 10 with the most risk. This chart shows me the inherent and predicted residual risk of each vendor. These are the vendors that require further mitigation. I want to point out Swipe Point of Sale when we get into your production portfolio as an example of how you can use CyberGRX to identify and remediate risk. Let's transition now into your portfolio and see some examples of analyzing vendor security when an assessment is and isn't available for immediate consumption. This portfolio chart illustrates all vendors in your portfolio by inherent risk. The higher up the chart you go, the higher the likelihood the vendor is to experience a cyber event. The farther right the vendor appears, the greater the impact to Acme. As such, these vendors in the upper right-hand quadrant are the riskiest in your portfolio. Swipe Point of Sale is among them. I'm happy to point out more portfolio charts and graphs by providing you with content via the Prospect portal, but for now, and in the interest of time, let's drill in and examine Swipe's security profile and see why it's among your riskiest third parties. On the Summary tab of Swipe's security profile, I can see that it has a few high-priority findings as a result of a completed and authorized self-assessment. One of the findings is security awareness training, which is the #1 defense against phishing attempts. Phishing also happens to be the #1 delivery system of ransomware. Now we know why Swipe made our riskiest vendors report. Upon reviewing Swipe's questionnaire response related to security awareness, Acme should recommend that Swipe add additional topical areas to its training modules. This should be a very simple remediation for Swipe. Before we break, let's quickly look at one of your vendors that hasn't yet completed a self-assessment. As you recall from the presentation, we have good coverage of the third parties you care about most, and our exchange is growing rapidly. But periodically you'll need to triage vendors that haven't completed an assessment. CyberGRX is predicting that Atlas Cloud will have control deficiencies related to patching, but Risk Recon and Recorded Future both have favorable opinions of its network controls and dark web hygiene, which compensate for CyberGRX's prediction. I'm going to go ahead and request that Atlas complete a self-assessment, even though I don't plan to delay my contracting for its completion for 2 reasons. 1. I want to set proper expectations in the event that my risk context with Atlas should change. And 2, the CyberGRX subscription model is designed such that it doesn't cost me any more to initiate an assessment than it does to rely solely on predictive intelligence. The best way to maximize your CyberGRX investment is to keep your portfolio full of vendor data so that crisis triage efforts can be focused on analysis and mitigation and not data collection. If I achieve my objective, you've seen a glimpse of how CyberGRX can improve vendor onboarding and provide actionable insights regarding your entire third-party ecosystem. At this point, organizations interested in finding out more will typically need to accomplish one or more of the following evaluation steps in order to know for sure if CyberGRX will work with their process. We find it takes between 15 and 30 days to work through a full evaluation. Does it make sense to look at calendars now and schedule an evaluation kickoff?